Good afternoon, fellow colleagues. Welcome to today's webinar, courtesy of Leia Education. My name is Claudia, and today I'm going to share some additional activities that can be used with your WhatsApp 8 teaching toolbox. On behalf of deste editora, I'm going to explore the different cards. I'm going to work with the paddles inclusively. I'm going to show you different ways, give you some ideas that you can make so that you can make the most of these resources. Some of the activities presented here today can even be used with your 7th and 9th graders if that's the case. So let's get started. We're going to have a look at the spoken production cards first. Here we have a spoken production card related to Unit 1, which is sports and hobbies. So once students have practiced introducing sports and hobbies of the people on the cards, the idea here is that you get them to present their own sport and hobby, allowing them to relate to the topic a bit more. Okay, so here's my suggestion. Give students some time to prepare a presentation on their sport or hobby. They can draw it on a poster, they can prepare a PowerPoint presentation, or they can just simply come dressed for the occasion, bringing in some equipment, some gear. Let's imagine their favorite sport is roller skating. They can bring in a helmet, a pair of roller skates, some knee pads, some wrist guards, etc. And they can present it to the class. However, by the end of the presentation, they must have come up with 3 sentences prepared previously, some true and some false about what they've just presented, their sport, their hobby. Okay. Meanwhile, the students listening must decide whether the information is true or false by holding up the true or false paddles available in your WhatsApp box. Okay. So for instance, here on the right side, we had a presentation about skateboarding. And the student presented these 3 sentences at the end. Okay, students had to decide if they were true, if they were false, by holding up the paddles. Okay, so we're going to try and use the paddles as much as possible throughout the activities as well, not only for the purpose that's described in the teacher's file. So moving along, Unit 2 explores fashion. So this card here, they would have to describe a fashion style or clothes, for instance, based on what is written at the bottom of the card. Okay, so from here, my suggestion would be is why not have a fashion show, for instance? Divide students into groups of 4 or 5, and in turns, students will go up to a bag which you will have prepared beforehand. And inside that bag, there will be a fashion style. Okay, they will pick out a fashion style from the bag. They mustn't show it to anyone. And in the next lesson, the entire group or a member from that group is going to walk the runway. Okay, so meanwhile, someone from their group will describe what he or she is wearing. And then it is up to the other groups to guess and decide what is the fashion style that is being presented. Okay. Alternatively, you can also offer your students a more artistic approach for this activity, which you can have them also create a fashion collage. It can be made from cutouts from magazines, and then it can later on be hung in the classroom wall, for instance, on the classroom wall. So here, different ways to explore the fashion style in this unit. Moving along to Unit 3, it discusses restaurants and meals. Here's a similar approach to the first activity that I mentioned. Instead of presenting, however, the sports and hobbies, they'll be presenting their favorite restaurant or their favorite dish, for instance. And they can even bring in some food for the class to try if that's the case. Once students have presented, ask them if they would be interested in eating at this restaurant. Okay, so one student presents their favorite dish or presents their favorite restaurant, and then the other students holding the actually yes or no, not really paddles would then answer if they would be interested in eating at this restaurant, in trying this dish. And then this can lead on to further discussion by exploring why and why not they would or wouldn't. Moving on to the next slide, we have environmentally friendly projects. Okay, so Unit 4 brings us this topic of the environment, the problems, threats, projects, It's a very current topic nowadays, actually. So the follow-up challenge for this spoken production card is to get students working in small groups and do some research on a similar project, meaning that they'll have to dig up some information about an existing environmentally friendly project in Portugal. Okay, so but before they present their presentation, however, they must show the class 5 sentences related to the theme in which some are true and some are false. Okay, so yet another opportunity for students to use those true or false paddles and guess whether the statements are true or false. Okay, so let's imagine a student is presenting, I don't know, a project, something in Portugal, but let's say something broader, maybe on UNICEF. Okay, before they present the information from UNICEF, they would have 5 sentences, some true, some false, for students to guess beforehand whether or not the information is accurate or not. And then after the presentation, the students would then check their answers. Hopefully they've paid attention to check their answers from the presentation. Moving along, now we're going to see some spoken interaction cards that are also available in your teaching toolbox. And again, the theme of restaurants. Okay, so restaurant related vocabulary. Here we have a role play situation. Once students have confidently practiced this, you can then give them a little bit more. So you can introduce them to some more vocabulary, namely complaints, to further boost their vocabulary, and also have a look at common problems that do occur in restaurants. Okay, you can even start by asking them if they've ever had an issue at a restaurant and let them share the story with the rest of the class. You can then take note of these problems once you've explored it with the class and write them down on the board for students to see. And then with this, you will have students role play a similar situation to this one on the card, but this time with complaints. So for instance, the soup is too cold or the service is terrible. Any complaints that would be common in a restaurant, let's say. And why not even bring in some realia? You can bring in a tablecloth, some plates, glasses, and make it all more realistic, having the scene of a restaurant there while you're doing the role plays, the role play on complaints. You also have spoken interaction cards related to school events, as we can see here. This one talks about a school event is going to take place. It talks about the date, when, what's it for, etc. So here the challenge for students would be for them to come up with a school event that they think would be a good idea to have in their school. Okay, they should include photos, drawings, but above all, they should be able to pitch their events very well and convince the rest of the class to attend. And why? Because by the end of this activity, the other students who will be holding the actually yes and no not really paddles, they would answer to the question if they think that this event is a good idea to have in school and why not. So again, we're using the paddles here to create further discussion in the classroom, to get the students speaking. Okay, when they present their events, they must mention the name of the event, where it's going to take place, when it's going to take place, are there any prizes, who can participate? Is it for the entire school? Is it for parents, students alone? And so they have to come up with a very creative event for their school, present it to the class, pitch it really well, and then by the end of the presentation, ask the class if they would want to participate, and they would answer with the no, not really, or actually yes paddles. Moving along, we still have another topic, which is animals in danger of extinction. So this one related again to environments. And here we have information about an animal in danger of extinction, the orangutan. Okay. In Portugal, there are also animals in danger of extinction. So again, the follow-up activity suggested for this activity would be to carry out a research project or a web quest about endangered animals in Portugal. So again, we're bringing the topic to a more personal viewpoint of the student. So he can relate to this because it's his country, let's say. Okay, here we have some examples. I'm not sure if you're familiar with these three animals in danger of extinction on the right, and we also have the true or false paddles. Okay, and why? So they're going to create a presentation about an endangered animal in Portugal. Okay, and you can even team up with the science teacher here and create a little room or a little moment of CLIL. If you're not familiar, it's content and language integrated learning here. Team up with a science teacher, get them involved too, explore, and then students present. And before students present, once again, there will be 5 statements before the presentation in which students will just have to decide, guess, if those statements are true or false using the paddles. And only then will the student present to the rest of the class their endangered animal to see if they were right. Now moving along to holidays. There are also some spoken interaction cards with images about holidays and activities to do while on holiday. Okay, my suggestion here, with the ones that have the pictures, you'll see all of these pictures, students are going to carry out a writing task about an imaginary holiday that they had, or even a real one if possible. Okay, so before they do that, project these images, these spoken interaction cards on the board, for example, on the wall for them to see. Because the idea is that they do this writing task, but they must use 5 of the images, 5 of the pictures here to do their writing, okay? At the end, the student will then read their story aloud. After that, call another student to the front of the class, and he or she must point out the 5 photos that were used in the story that their colleague has just read. Okay. And there are also other cards in the spoken interaction card section, but namely they're designated for pair and group work. Okay. And for that reason, you'll find 2 of the same card available, such as this one. Okay, so here we see a boy. He's doing some tricks, as we can see. And my suggestion here would be the following. You give 2 students the same photo. Okay, 2 students will have this same photo. They will have to come up with information for what they see. Okay, namely his name, how old he is, information. You can even provide them with these sentence frames over here on the right. His name is, he's years old, he lives in, he loves skateboarding because it could be skateboarding, any other hobby, any other sport. And what you would have them do is create these sentences, come up with this information, but it's imperative that they do not see each other's work. And why? Because at the end, you will call these 2 students to the front of the class and they will present the information about their picture. And you would ask, how many things did they get in common? Did they have the same name? Were they the same age? So the idea is that they present the same card, and if they are mind readers, they will present the same information for the card. Okay, it's just another fun activity for students. Here the idea is that they get as much in common as their colleague. Okay, for each thing in common, you award them a point. And the pair with the most points wins. Okay, so have them write maybe about 5 or 6 sentences about the picture. Not too many sentences here. You want to give everyone an opportunity also speak and share their information, and make sure that again they don't communicate, they don't talk. Normally when students then understand what's intended with this activity, they'll try to reach keep an eye on their colleague and call them and say, hey, what's the name? So what you don't want that, you don't want that here. What you want them to do is try and guess each other's information, read each other's mind, and then present and be surprised with the answers. Who knows, they might even have many things in common. So that's another speaking activity that can be carried out with these flashcards. Okay, And that's all with the spoken interaction cards. Let's have a look at what we can do with the 10-minute games in your teaching toolbox. In this section of the 10-minute games, you'll find small cards that can primarily be used for the purpose described in the teacher's file. Okay, have a look at that. And however, there are also these smaller cards with photos on them. So why not have a go here and play a game of taboo? Okay, in case you're not familiar with the game of taboo, it's a party game with words, and students or players take in turns to describe a word or phrase, and there are five additional words related to that topic which they cannot use. In this case, you'll only have the image. Okay, so you'll have these picture cards, let's say, all cut up, put in a bag. A student comes to the front of the class, takes out one of these cards, and then has to describe what is there for the colleagues to guess. And again, I suggest providing them with some useful language beforehand. It's something you can eat. It's a place where it's an environmental issue, okay? And this is very important, especially when you have less confident students, let's say, who are not very keen on speaking and are shy in a way. So providing them with this type of language on the side will definitely help them also and get them participating with their colleagues. Okay. You'll also find in the same section, you'll also find these cards for students to write down 5 of something within a minute. Okay, so we can see sports. Give me 5 sports we play with a ball. Your minute starts now. And here the students would have to write as many or 5 sports or even more within a minute. Okay, so what do I bring to the table here? Rather than writing this down, I would suggest having the entire class participate by bringing in a ball. It can be an inflatable beach ball, for instance, or any other fluffy ball that's not going to hurt the colleagues when you throw it and you pass it to them. So the thing is, students are going to pass the ball and they're going to name that thing. For instance, let's look at the Unit 2 fashion card. Okay, give me 5 fashion accessories. Give me 5 fashion accessories. Students would toss the ball to each other, they'll toss it around, and they would name an accessory. Okay, the first student might say earring, the second student might say wallet, and so on and so on. So at the beginning of the activity though, let each student know that they begin with 3 points. And how do they lose these 3 points? That's important for them to know too. They will lose these 3 points if they repeat a word. So it's important that they pay attention to what's being said so that they don't repeat it. If they don't answer within 10 seconds, so here it's important that you are keeping track of time or that you've assigned another student to do that for you. And they can also lose a point if they're holding the ball when time runs out. And here I would recommend no more than a minute for each one of these. It gets students very active. They're very happy to play this game. They can do it standing up, etc. So that would be my suggestion. However, there's still some wiggle room in this activity to include the true or false paddles. How? Before the game starts, you tell 2 students they're going to sit out and they're going to be the referees. Okay, so they must pay close attention to their colleagues' answers in order to decide if the answer is a valid one or not. Okay, so the ball is being tossed around, let's imagine, and a student calls out t-shirt. Okay, the student referee with the true or false paddle will then raise the false paddle. The game is paused and the referee must justify why the answer isn't valid. So, of course, if we're talking about fashion accessories, the referee would say a t-shirt is not an accessory. Okay, and that student would lose a point. So again, you nominate 2 referees for this activity with the paddles, and the game would then continue with this topic or moving on with any other topic. Again, it's a great activity because it works with all units, all topics, and it's a very versatile game. And you will also find the 10-minute memes at the end of in the final section of your WhatsApp teaching toolbox. And we've come to that. Also, just a quick reminder, there's a whole presentation on memes available for you on YouTube via La Educação called Meme Menu in the Classroom. If you missed it last year or some months ago, I believe, go and have a look at it. In the meantime, I'm going to add on to these memeful activities. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. First, assign 5 students to be judges. So 5 students are going to be judges. Next, divide the class into 3 teams. Each team lines up in front of the board, and the first student is going to have the marker in the hand. Once everyone is in position, you hold up a photo of a meme, such as this one. The idea is that each team creates a caption or sentence for that meme, but they're going to do this one word at a time. So for example, this meme shown here, the first word written by the student was my. Then the second student came along and wrote face. Third one came along and wrote when. Okay, so it's like a relay race. They are going one word at a time and they're writing down until the sentence is complete. So it's also really important here that students do not talk to each other, okay? The judges can also be a part of this supervision here. If students talk within the same team, they can be eliminated or their sentence doesn't count, for instance. I'm going to tell you the judge's role more towards the end in just a minute. But basically the idea is that they write a caption or a sentence for the meme presented. So for instance, here the final result would have been something like my face when the teacher says we're having a pop quiz tomorrow. Okay, so once all the teams have finished writing their caption on the board, and once you've made any necessary corrections, whether it be spelling or grammar, it's the judge's turn to vote. Okay, so with the actually yes and no not really paddles, you're going to ask them, do you find team one's caption amusing or the best? And they would answer with actually yes or no not really. Okay, and do you find team two's, and so on and so on. Okay, the team with the most positive responses is the winner. Okay, and I believe that that's all the time we have left for today. I hope you use your teaching toolbox along with these ideas to spark some conversation and fun in the classroom. Okay, on behalf of Desde thank you for joining me today, and stay tuned for more webinars to come by La Educação. Have a great day and see you next time.